It's time to look at the Dynasty Fantasy Football trade market and take a look at 3 running backs and their trade market so you guys can make your decision whether you want to buy, sell, or hold them. If you're new here, if you haven't seen one of these videos before, we take 3 players from a certain position group, we go over their market value, and then we just see where they're going out on the market to see if we want to trade, buy, sell, hold, whatever we want to do with them in our leagues. And we do this every week. Today we're going over 3 running backs and their long-term player values and what we're seeing on the market right now. If that's something you're into, smash that subscribe button right now, because I'm going to be having videos like this all year long, going over these players. Sometimes I'll have repeats on them, and I might have some in this video, but it's been a few weeks since I've done one. But we're going hot and heavy today. First running back we're going to talk about today is a veteran who popped off last year going through an injury, but now is on the comeback and is in a grand situation. We're talking about Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. And how we do this, we take a player from the top of the ADP, we go to middle ADP, and we go to bottom ADP. This guy's at the top as we've been working down here from this offseason, and he's being valued as the RB12 in ADP, 34th player off the board right now per ADP. He's 26 years old, so he's not the youngest running back, but he's not at the end of his days either. So he's starting to get there. So it really depends on where you're at and building your team. He will be a free agent at the end of 2024. At that time, he will be 27 years old. That's a marker you want to look at his player profile for the long term. He's coming back from a fractured tibia where he had surgery on. So we got to see how he recovers, how good he comes back. Last season, he had 6 RB1 games, 4 RB2 games, averaged 15.6 PPR points per game. That's per Rotoviz. Had over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, got 39 balls for 371 yards. One of the most productive running backs in all of football last year. A lot of people love him. Good size, adjusted athleticism. On the trade analyzer over at DLF, he's worth more than the 104 and 1 QB, and he's worth around the 107 and 2 QB. Players in his range per the trade analyzer: Najee Harris, Nick Chubb, Ramondre Stevenson. So those are some other running backs that you can look at if you're trying to make some trades. That's what it's saying in the value. And then here are some real trades that happened off the trade finder. So he was dealt for the 110 and the 208. He was dealt straight up for the 108. He was dealt straight up for the 107. He was dealt straight up for the 105. He was dealt straight up for Drake London. He was dealt straight up for 103 in a second. Him plus the 108 for the 104 in Superflex, a 2024 first and a second. So his value is kind of expensive, but I like him for redraft. I like him for the now. I like him for next couple years maybe. The future's getting stacked against him though due to age. We got to see what he's going to be looking like for the long term, but he is an expensive short-term option for your dynasty team. Could be 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. But we're not looking for the long haul. But he has proven he can be very productive. And that production is also driving the market. But also, he could be more expensive compared to what he was doing last year as well. Typically, running backs with his profile who pop off, they kind of go over the moon in value. That's not happening right now due to him coming back from the injury. You can also look at this as a discount as well, because you're looking at a running back in a good offense who's going to get a boatload of touches in the passing game and in the run game, and also has the athleticism to really pop off. I like Tony Pollard. I like him for the short term. However, if I'm in the middle of the road or I got a rebuilding team, I probably got to look away. There's good value here, though, to sell off if I'm not in it to win it. Say I'm not here to compete and I'm not really going to be there until like 2026 or so. He's going to be old by then, and then the value is going to be zapped. There's going to be a lot of question marks for the long term. That's something you want to look into. Same thing for this next running back. He can be productive this year. He has been productive throughout his career, off and on. He's an older veteran who has dealt with some injuries, but can also come back and string you some games here. We're talking about David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. He turns 26 in June, RB34 in ADP, 96 overall. So not super expensive. So a player you can catch at a discount if you want something for the now. Back in 2021, he had an ADP of 33 overall, so he has fallen a little bit from 33 to 90 some. 9 RB1 games in the last 2 years with the Bears. Now he's in Detroit on a 3-year, $18 million deal. Team has an out on his contract at the end of 2024, so that's something to look into. So this may be more of a 2-year deal for him. The Lions did draft Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. They are planning to use him, but that does not mean David Montgomery won't get enough touches to have some fantasy relevancy, to give you some spot performances, to give you something on the back end, and everything's according to price. You're looking at RB34, 90 something overall. So that's something if you want to go cheaper at running back, if you want to patch it up at running back and just hammer wide receivers and get somebody a little later, that's somebody you might want to look at depending on what else is available. Monty's Dynasty stock is now getting very interesting. Looking at the Dynasty Trade Analyzer, he's going for the 201 in 1 QB leagues, 207 in 2 QB leagues. So mid to early second round rookie pick-ish looks like to be the value per the DLF Trade Analyzer. Dalton Kincaid, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Hopkins are players that they have in the value there. And then real trades that are going on right now. He's been dealt straight up for Greg Dulcich, 205 straight up, David Njoku straight up, 301 straight up, 302 straight up, Amari Cooper straight up, 211 straight up, 202 straight up, Cole Kmet, and the 109 straight up. 1-for-1. So you're getting a lot of volatility and value here, which makes a lot of sense considering where he's at, considering Jahmyr Gibbs, considering the offense. Very ambiguous, a lot of unknown here. So some people are paying up late first, early second, some people paying early third, some people are willing to deal him out, some people want to hold on to that value. You're really just going to have to kick the tires and see the market on this one. But again, he's a cheap asset that you can have for the now. You're not expecting him to go over the moon in production, but you're expecting to get something maybe. You're expecting to get something because he is going to get some volume. We know this team can move the football. We know this team likes to use their running backs. And David Montgomery is a player that might excel in this offense, and you might get something out of him for the next couple years. And the value is there, and it's kind of cheap. Again, if you're rebuilding and you're not in it to win it now, this is a player you kind of want to stay away from because if it takes you 2 years to be able to compete, to be one of the top dogs in your league, he's going to be old by then. The value is going to be zapped, and the odds of him helping you out is not going to be great. And the values here right now, it's starting to trickle down, but you still got some value where you can get a little bit younger, but that's on what you can do in your league. On the low end of the spectrum of ADP, we have another older running back who's now in a new situation and an ambiguous depth chart where he needs to produce now, do something now in camp for him to give us something in fantasy. I'm talking about Ronald Jones of the Dallas Cowboys. We just talked about Tony Pollard, but Ronald Jones right now, RB 82 in ADP, 233rd overall. So he's falling out of some drafts, depending on how shallow the league is. He is going on waiver wire, depending on how shallow the league is, or he's a deep flyer in some leagues. He turns 26 in August. 3 RB1 weeks in the last 3 years. Not since 2020 he has been productive. So this guy has not churned out production for quite a while. 2020 doesn't seem too long ago, but it is. Cowboys depth chart right now is Tony Pollard, Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, Rico Dowdle, plus him. Of course, they can bring in more competition as the market gets cheaper throughout the summer. But Ronald Jones has an opportunity here. He has to play well in camp. He has to move up the depth chart in camp for him to be productive for us in fantasy football. So this is a speculation play on the cheap because this offense can turn out some production at the running back position. Again, he's on a 1-year deal. Trade Analyzer has him going for a 4th and 5th round pick in rookie drafts. You may want to just draft the rookies there if you want, depending on what's there and what you want to do. Trade Finder. Bidding money is what he's being traded for. Nobody's really valuing him. He's being traded for bidding money. 405 straight up, 502 straight up, the 410 straight up, a 2024 4th, 411 straight up. This guy's going for a song. It's just what cheap player do you want to speculate on is really what we're asking here. Is it Ronald Jones? Is it another guy? What end of bench guy are you willing to speculate on? I can make stories for you guys if you want. There could be attrition in this depth chart in camp or something, and he just gets anointed. He could just come back to his old self. He has been dealing with injuries in his career. He could start getting that pop back in his step. And you know what? He becomes the RB2, RB3, and then attrition happens mid-year, and then you got something out of him. You're not going to get anything out of him long term. That is not in the cards. That is not in the cards. We're not going to be going into 2025 with Ronald Jones on our Dynasty rosters. That is not in play. You're just hoping to get something out of the ordinary out of him mid-season. That's what you're hoping. Maybe a few games. And maybe that can leak into the next year if you're lucky. Odds are against this, but the odds are against anybody being valued as a 5th-round pick. Who are you going to spend your 5th-round pick on? Are you going to speculate on this guy? Are you going to speculate on this rookie? What are you going to do with that? Are you going to move it for another pick? That's the question here. That's the question at the end of these videos. When we look at the cheap player here, Ronald Jones is not an exception to that. But those are 3 running backs that we're looking at on the Dynasty trade market. I want to hear what's your take on them. Some guys you want me to cover here in the near future when I do the next video. I want to hear about it. Make sure you smash that subscribe button on the way out. Only here to help you to build your Dynasty teams, get you ready for rookie drafts, and also got them player clips coming at you too. Let you know what your rookies are looking like right now. I want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.